Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel that takes on all kinds of issues related to dealing with narcissistic relationships, toxic relationships, difficult people, and more importantly, how to heal and recover when you're going through or have gone through these relationships. We're doing a series now on narcissistic victories. Again, thanks to the person who even sent in the original seed of the idea there, and really expanding this out on sort of what are the wins in these relationships. And that leads me, again, I mention this every time just to let people know, that idea of recovery and these narcissistic victories really link to a healing program, a monthly program that's going to begin in January. Please go to the video description, hit that link and get more information. So let's though talk about this idea of victory in your narcissistic relationship. We've talked about this in various ways, but today we're going to really talk about what are the signs that you can look out for that you are recovering. It's been such a joy to work on this particular series because I really love talking about the growth and the wins that people experience as they go through narcissistic relationship. What happens is that as you get out and you start making the changes, and even if you stay in and you start making the changes, people are like, am I getting better? And I, as sort of, I'm a bit of a houseplant aficionado. One thing I do know is that even today I water the plant, I can't watch it growing bigger, but then I take a look, I'm like, oh, that plant got bigger. It's the same thing sort of with growth. So we have talked at length in this series about what victory looks like in a narcissistic relationship, and also different ways on how you should commemorate those wins and victories, whether you're in or out of the relationship. But ultimately, what most survivors want is just to get past it and to recover from it. So my key sort of piece of wisdom on recovery from narcissistic abuse, for what it's worth, and I've said this before, it's not a sort of pathway where your mind kind of magically gets cleared about what has happened to you, nor is it that kind of spotless mind healing. There is no way you just forget about it all. Recovery often means turning into a direction that may feel a little more cynical or guarded or more careful, which actually is fine. Recovery also takes a long time, and in some ways it's an ongoing and lifelong process. You can't just be careful or have good boundaries for a year. To recover means making lifelong shifts. But let's talk about the signs that really show that your recovery is actually happening. And this is where I'd love for you to drop a comment. Love to hear your stories of recovery. What were the signs where you're like, whoa, wait, I am actually getting better? Drop them in the comments. I'm going to be sharing 9 in our video today, but we can make that list longer with your comments. So number 1, sign you're recovering. You no longer post on social media hoping that they see it. Let's face it, social media is the petri dish that lets narcissistic relationships, even when you're out of them, fester. Once upon a time, when a narcissistic relationship ended, other than coincidence or maybe that you were still kind of poking around in their lives, there were few ways to really know what your ex-narcissist's life looked like. But now, social media can really keep people stuck mentally for months or even years. Remember, narcissistic people always move on faster after relationships and have a better superficial ground game than you do. So their post-you life is going to look better than yours does initially. So recovery means that you are finally able to stop looking at their feed and perhaps even block them from yours. That you no longer revenge post or post things or quotes or images or reflections or anything you want them to see. Number 2 sign of recovery, you ruminate less. Rumination is one of the most core patterns that we see in the narcissistic relationship. And it's a classical process, not only during narcissistic abuse, but during the early period of healing. And rumination sucks. Literally, it sucks. It sucks you in because it pulls you out of your life. It leaves you distracted, not present, and often not there for the actually important stuff in your life. Children, job, household, other people. One of the best moments I have in working with any client experiencing narcissistic abuse is the day that they tell me that they got through an entire day or an entire afternoon and did not think about the narcissistic person once. It's a revelation to them. And they find themselves slowly but surely recognizing like, I'm not thinking about them. I'm thinking about other stuff and actually kind of enjoying life. Number 3, you have fewer nightmares and dreams about them. Oh, those narcissistic folks and their invalidation and gaslighting and all the rest of it. It just sort of burrows deep into our unconscious minds and comes out at night while we sleep. Admittedly, I still have narcissist dreams, and it has been a long time. Usually those dreams come up more when I'm at times of stress. It will happen for years, these dreams and nightmares, but it will happen less. Many clients of mine will be unsettled years out when they think they've recovered, and they have, but then they dream about the narcissist. They find it unsettling. The deep recesses of our memories and our unconscious are sort of like a messy attic. Stuff that you thought you threw out or didn't even know was up there, but you didn't. You don't miss the stuff, but it kind of pops up from time to time when you kind of are up there in that attic. It'll happen less and less as you go through recovery, but even 10 years or 20 years out, don't be surprised when they roll into your dreamscape. Number 4, you hear their name or you hear about them and you don't feel that sympathetic nervous system activation. Early on, just hearing the narcissistic person's name or hearing about them or what they're doing can sometimes be enough to set off a fight or a flight or a freeze or a fawn. I actually do remember once coming out of one such relationship and someone in my midst wanted to talk about the person or ask about them or share something about them. And bizarrely, I abruptly just got out of my chair and really quickly left the room. It was my little bit of flight, but I so didn't want to hear about this person. I almost literally felt sick up to my throat. Now, indifference came, I'd listen and actually not really care. But recovery means that one day you will hear their name and not feel a damn thing. It doesn't get under your skin as much anymore. And that day is a good day. You may hear their name or hear about them. Maybe you'll feel a sense of disgust, but that's very different than that racing heart and that bodily discomfort. Your sympathetic nervous system is quite primal and it was designed to protect you. So cognitively, you may have worked this narcissistic relationship and abuse out in your head, but that primitive sympathetic nervous system is like an overzealous bodyguard kicking everybody out, right? Feeling that adrenaline-y discomfort doesn't mean that you aren't recovering. It's just part of the process. And over time, there'll be less of those reactions. Number 5, you slowly start getting to indifference. This is the top of the mountain of recovery, as you know, indifference, just not caring anymore. This may be the last stop on the recovery train. If that happens, you don't need to listen to me anymore. You don't care about the good. You don't care about the bad. Maybe you get a little schadenfreude, a little bit of a karmic giggle if things go bad, but you just don't care. Like I said, this is the recovery summit. My prayer each night upon falling asleep is to get all survivors to this point. Number 6, you are able to start being willing to learn from the suffering. Let me put it this way. If indifference is the summit, then this point, the getting meaning from it is the flag on the summit. When you're in the middle of narcissistic abuse or you're in the beginning of that recovery process of letting it go, thinking about things at the level about how to extract meaning from this or the lessons you learn from this, or even see it as sort of an existential choice to think about it one way or another, it feels impossible. You really can start noticing the recovery and the narcissistic victory when the regret turns to acceptance. The recognition that as painful as all of this was, you did learn something, and an awareness of what these patterns are and avoiding them in the future. Again, having worked with survivors across the spectrum of survivorhood, from acute grief all the way to being able to do this, derive meaning and purpose, it's there. And it's quite amazing to witness those who are able to say, I wish this didn't happen to me, but it did. And now I know this about the world or that about the world, or it forced me to take a hard look at other unhealthy patterns in my life. Number 7, you're recovering because you start to allow yourself to move forward. After narcissistic abuse, many people get stuck. They put their lives on ice. They don't feel safe in moving forward, or they doubt themselves. They hear the invalidating voices of the narcissistic relationship still echoing in their heads. Even after a year or more, many people won't consider a new relationship after the narcissist. They won't push themselves professionally. They may not feel comfortable making a move that's good for them, or maybe not even want to take a vacation alone or buy a car or something. Recovery means recognizing that the narcissistic relationship is behind you, and that it is okay to create a new world and life for yourself. And to ask yourself, are you doing things that you didn't do before? It's hard to do that. Number 8, you start distancing yourself from other information sources around the narcissistic person. Many times, just being close to the enablers, the flying monkeys, and even other shared stakeholders can really take a toll on you. You have to keep hearing about the toxic person. And just as you are healing, especially in the early stages, it can set you back. I hate to say it, but think of it as picking on a scab. You don't have to go no contact with these people or let them go completely. But recovery means much better boundaries, not sharing details that you don't want getting back to the narcissist, distancing yourself when the conversation brings back old stuff that you have put behind you, not engaging in the unhealthy enabling conversations. At some point, this may become somewhat reflexive. You will see that the trauma bonded glue of the narcissistic relationship kept you connected with other people who weren't always healthy for you. But the narcissistic relationship was so unhealthy, you didn't notice how unhealthy these others. Recovery means not just growing out of and away from the narcissist, but also from the other people who were always not so good for you and may have kept you stuck longer. Number 9, stop concerning yourself about their failures and losses, the narcissist's failures and losses. Now, this relates to a few points I've already made: the indifference, the not caring about what they're doing, who they're with, where they are. And it relates to the first point about social media. And it relates to the point about distancing yourself from your shared stakeholders. There is a time when you felt you would heal if you just knew that the narcissist was going to get karmic payback, or that things went wrong in their lives, or that you would feel an overwhelming sense of injustice and discomfort because things were kind of working out for the narcissist. As recovery proceeds, good, bad, indifferent, you really just stop wasting bandwidth on them. Because really, that's what recovery comes down to: bandwidth. And the less of it that you waste on them, the better you do. Now, listen, I just shared 9 patterns that I have witnessed in the recovery realm, but I know that these are by no means an exhaustive list. Once again, I ask you, what are other ways that you have tracked or noticed your own recovery? Please share them, because everyone benefits from them. Please share them in the comments. Recovery is part of the victory of it all. And these things, they happen slowly. Like I said, like watching a plant grow. You can't see it in real time, but come back to that plant a month or so later, and there it is. It's definitely bigger. You see something new coming off of it. The growth is happening. And that moment, like I said, in my beloved houseplants, when I notice that little bit of growth, I'm like, look at that, it's happening. But if I stared at it all day long, probably not so much, and I'd probably drive myself mad. So thanks again. Work towards that recovery. And I hope every day for you, there is some kind of a narcissistic victory built in. Thanks again.